Hi, I'm Ben, welcome back to my channel and to this month in book news. We'll get straight into it, starting with some sales figures. Rooney Mania has been in full swing in recent weeks, and you may have found Sally's new novel Intermezzo completely inescapable on social media. And those marketing efforts seem to have paid off because Rooney was comfortably #1 on the UK sales charts, selling over 40,000 copies in her first week. It's in the same ballpark as her previous release, Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which sold 46,000. It is a bit lower, but I think sometimes a book's sales can be a function of an author's last book, and Beautiful World was coming off the back of Normal People's mammoth success. However, just to put that into perspective, just 2 weeks ago, Richard Osman's new series launched with We Solve Murders, and that sold over 100,000 copies in its first week and a further 50,000 in its second week. I thought that was interesting because although Rooney is an undeniably big fish, it just puts into perspective how much smaller a pond literary fiction is. It's even more impressive when you consider that the average literary fiction novel sells less than 500 copies in its year of release, as reported by a Weatherglass Books blog post titled The Car Crash Economics of Publishing. Some people may gripe at Rooney gobbling up all these sales when plenty of other books should get more love, and I totally sympathise with that, but as ever, it's not that simple because sales of popular books do pay for a lot of other books to be brought to market and allow publishers to take risks on new authors and new ideas. I just think it's good to see books flying off the shelves, and I'm sure many more copies of these two immensely popular titles will make their way into people's hands in the run-up to Christmas. Then, perhaps not quite news and definitely not good news, but two requests for help in the UK publishing and bookselling industries from fantastic companies that are trying to survive. First, Tilted Axis Press is a publisher of books by global majority authors, often translated but also in a variety of local types of English. In recent years, it's had great success in the International Booker. It had 3 books longlisted in 2022, including the book that went on to win, Tomb of Sand. It would be incredible if they could see sales that were even a fraction of those achieved by Rooney and Osman, but that's sadly not their reality, and after weathering economic storms in recent years, they are looking for community support to raise £75,000 by the end of October to keep doing what they do. Right now, they're at just over a tenth of that. I think it's around £8,000 that they've raised, so they have a steep hill to climb this month to reach their target. If you'd like to contribute, I'll leave a link in the description. Also, looking for support is The Common Press, which is a queer bookshop, cafe and event space in East London. It's a great little shop, and I actually went there with a bunch of fellow booktubers earlier in the year. Sadly, their investors are no longer able to fund them, so they've set up as a community interest company, which means their profits will go back into the community rather than to shareholders. To make this work though, they need to raise £100,000. At the time of recording, they've managed to raise just over 40,000, which is an immense achievement. And again, if you'd like to contribute to help them get to their goal, I'll put a link in the description. It's sad that great organisations like this have to make pleas for handouts, but it's telling about the state of arts funding in the UK right now. I can only hope that the new Labour government will do something to reverse the pain being felt by arts organisations. If you are not in a position to help, please do not feel bad. The UK is still in the grip of a cost of living crisis. Lots of people are struggling and won't have disposable income for this. But if you do have the means, contributing to keep these organisations alive is a lovely thing to do. Moving on to prize news, and in terms of winners, there aren't really too many to announce this month, but someone in the comments last month mentioned the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, which aims to champion works that promote peace, which is quite lovely, isn't it? This year's fiction prize was won by Prophet Song by Paul Lynch, which is another award notched up for this Booker winner. A bunch of shortlists were announced though. The Booker judges had the tricky job of narrowing what I think was a very strong long list down to 6 books. The biggest surprise was probably the omission of My Friends by Hisham Matar. That featured very high up in almost everyone's ranking, mine included, but sadly didn't make the cut. I was very pleased to see James and Stoneyard Devotional in there, delighted for The Safekeep, which I loved but didn't really expect to make it, and I think Held could well be the dark horse in this list. The National Book Awards in the US announced both its longlists and its finalists since my last book news video. I don't know why their turnaround is quite so quick between those two phases, but the general response to the longlist was very positive, so I'm sure it was another difficult one for the judges to narrow down. The 5 finalists include Booker Overlap's James and My Friends, which did make this shortlist, plus Martyr, Ghost Routes, which I'm currently reading, and potentially my next read, All Fours. If you would like to see a video with my thoughts on the NBA finalists, do let me know in the comments because I'm debating whether to put a video together for that. The Goldsmiths Prize also revealed its shortlist for 2024. I'd done some predictions for this one and managed to get absolutely none of them right, so my reputation taking a real hit this year. Funnily enough though, all of the books except the Hans Smith one were on various drafts of my Booker predictions list. The shortlist we got though does seem quite interesting. I'm most excited to read All My Precious Madness, and I am intrigued by both Spent Light and Tell, but I have to say I'm not super interested to read the Rachel Cusk, and I'm not entirely sure what's that innovative about choice based on the description, but obviously I haven't read it, so someone who has can maybe explain that to me. Finally, the Polari Prizes announced its shortlists. Notable here is that last year's first book winner, John Ransom, made the cut in the main award, so could win a Polari twice in 2 years. The first book list is much more exciting to me though. Lots of these are already on my TBR, and it's cool to see Welsh authors having a moment because both Joshua Jones and Rachel Dawson made the shortlist. Looking ahead then, and some dates for your diary, on the 5th, which is this coming Saturday, the Booktube Prize will announce its winner. The video is already scheduled to premiere, so I will link to that in the description. I judged the first round of this and did intend to judge the final round, but just didn't have time in the end. But the 3 books that made it through my group at the very start have all made it to the final, which is really cool. Tom Lake was my favourite from the group, so I am rooting for that. But I also loved The Beasting and would not be surprised at all if it won. On the 9th, the Gillis shortlist is being announced, and then on the 10th, the Nobel Prize will announce its recipient. I made some predictions for this one, so I will post a link to that video if you are interested. And then on the 16th, the Kirkus Prize winner will be revealed. It could be the first of many prizes for James, or it could be the latest in the many won by Prophet Song. Let's move on then to what's being released this month, and these are all based on UK release dates, and I'm just going to run through them in chronological order from the first of the month to the last of the month. On the first of the month is the release of Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. I think this one's been out in the US for quite a while, but it's finally getting its UK release courtesy of And Other Stories. I don't know too much about it, but I know that Talty is a Native American author, and this is supposed to be very good and very sad. I'm all in, and I'm just going to read it. On the 3rd of October is perhaps the highest profile literary release of the month, and that is Our Evenings by Alan Hollinghurst. This is about the life of an actor over many decades, and it's been getting really glowing reviews. Some review that I read, I think in The Guardian, was saying that it might be the best of his career, which is high praise indeed, because Alan Hollinghurst is a former Booker winner for The Line of Beauty. I'm really loving the cover art for this one. I think it looks like a novel that was released like 30 years ago. I'd really love to pick this up at some point. Also out on the 3rd is A Simple Intervention by Yael Inakai, translated from German by Marielle Sutherland. This is about a nurse who works in a hospital where they are doing a brain procedure which can basically free you from whatever you are suffering from. So if you are depressed, you can just go and have this painless intervention, and then you will come out freed from it. And I actually went to a book event the other day where Yael and Marielle were both there in conversation with a bookseller talking about the book, and they did some readings in both German and English, and it was really great. I'm really looking forward to reading this one because the concept just sounds endlessly interesting. Also coming out on the 3rd is The Third Realm by Karl Ove Knausgaard, translated by Martin Aitken. This is the 3rd in a new series. I have heard you don't have to have read the first 2 in order to enjoy this one, but that it's a lot more rewarding if you do. And then finally, rounding out all of these releases on the 3rd is The Volcano Daughters by Gina Maria Ballebrera. This is a decades-spanning story following 2 sisters who are trying to escape from a brutal dictatorship in the early 20th century El Salvador. I did mean to read this one in September because it would have been perfect for my Savage Reads prompt to read a book with a volcano on the cover, but I just didn't get around to it, so still on the TBR pile for now. On the 10th, we're getting a big thriller release from Paula Hawkins, best known for The Girl on the Train. Her new book, The Blue Hour, is coming out. On the 17th is the release of The Hotel by Daisy Johnson. She has previously been shortlisted for the Booker Prize for her novel Everything Under. This is a new collection of short stories from her. Based on the cover, it seems like they will be creepy and horror-tinged and perfect for spooky season. Also out on the 17th is My Favourite by Sarah Jolien Fardell, translated from French by Holly James. This, I think, came out in France a few years ago and was really popular. It is a powerful novel about male violence high up in the Swiss mountains in a village where everyone knows everything and no one says anything. It's the latest from the Indigo Press, and they have hit after hit, so I am definitely looking forward to reading this. On the 22nd is the release of a new book in what was the Southern Reach trilogy, but is now the Southern Reach series because it's a fourth book from Jeff Vandermeer in that universe. It's called Absolution, and it has a gorgeous cover. I'm sure it's going to be really creepy and mind-melty and very strange. Sounds perfect. On the 24th is a very autumnal looking read from Susanna Clarke. This is a little slip of a short story being released as a standalone book called The Wood at Midwinter. And out on the same day is Barrowbeck by Andrew Michael Hurley. This is a folk horror in a small Yorkshire town. Hurley writes creepy stuff really, really well. So if you are looking to be unsettled, this might be the one for you. Also coming out on the 24th is The Land in Winter by Andrew Miller. This is about a couple living in Bristol during a devastating winter in 1962 where they are just cut off from everything. I am a sucker for anything set in Bristol because it's fun to read about stuff set in your back garden. On the 30th is the release of Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. This is a kind of magical realism thought experiment kind of thing where basically one day all white people decide to approach the nearest body of water and drown, and suddenly the world has no white people left in it. And it's about community. It's supposed to be quite funny, and the cover makes it look really zany, so I'm really interested in this one. And then on the 31st, All Hallows Eve, there are two releases of note. One is The Party by Tessa Hadley. This is a novella about two sisters, and it's set in post-war Bristol. Don't know why there are suddenly lots of books about Bristol, but I am very much here for it. The other one is Glyph by Ali Smith. This is the first in a duology that I think she's planning. I think there's another one coming out next year called Glyph as well, but it's spelt differently. I actually don't know anything about this, but I'm sure it's going to be intellectually challenging. Let's move on to books on screen then, and the trailer has dropped for Small Things Like These, the adaptation of Claire Keegan's novella starring Cillian Murphy. I know a lot of people love this book, but I was a little bit lukewarm on it. I think Murphy is terrific though, so I can see this being very good. I had no idea this was happening, but Love in the Big City by Sang Young Park has been adapted into a movie. It had its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, but I can't seem to find any concrete info about its release date in different territories. There are not enough reviews on Rotten Tomatoes for a score yet, but at the time of filming, this has a 7.9 rating on IMDb from 35 reviews. A new adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot has been released just in time for spooky season on HBO Max, but the scariest thing about it seems to be the reviews. It has a score of 48% positive from critics and just 35% positive from audiences. It's also been announced that Meryl Streep is going to star in an adaptation of The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen, who will be adapting it for TV himself. I am still yet to read any Franzen, but this one is on my shelf, so maybe it will be a good push to pick it up if the TV show ends up looking like it's worth watching. Let's talk about some book deals. And this first one is very time limited because Fitzcarraldo have an autumn sale going on until midnight at the end of Monday, the 7th of October. You just need to use the code AUTUMN2024 at checkout and you'll get 25% off. It even applies to pre-orders, subscriptions, and bundles. In terms of the Kindle deals, I haven't had a chance to fully look through the list this month quite yet, but I will do that and I will update the wishlist shortly and link to it in the description as usual. I had a quick glance and there were a couple that stood out to me, including The Borrowed Hills by Scott Preston, which is really, really good, The Mothers by Britt Bennett, and Booktube's very own Katie Lumsden, who runs the channel Books and Things, and her debut novel The Secrets of Hartwood Hall. Just a little aside here, because I know some people don't love the fact that I mention an Amazon specific thing on this video, and it might feel especially egregious when I'm reporting that some other organisations are struggling. I totally get that. Amazon is the epitome of our late stage capitalist hellscape, but lots of people have Kindles and lots of people don't have the means to buy full priced books all the time. And so I see it as a really good thing for access to books to share this list of deals. I also recently spoke to an indie publisher who said they get a much better margin on Kindle books than they do selling their print books after you take into account paper costs and printing and distribution, all that jazz. They said that even when they discount their titles to 99p, it is absolutely worth it for them. I just thought that was really interesting and worth sharing because it doesn't feel like you're doing the publisher a favour when you buy a book at 99p. Closing the video out then is our feel-good story, which this month is that the indie booksellers Topping & Company are planning to open the UK's biggest indie bookshop in York in autumn 2025. The branch in Bath is one of my favourite bookshops, and the new supersized store will join their roster of shops along with the ones in Edinburgh, St Andrews and Ely. If you live in York, you are very lucky, because not only do Toppings have a great selection of books and often lots of signed ones, they are just fantastic at putting on author events. That rounds out this month in book news. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a like. And if you'd like to see more from me, then hit subscribe. Let me know in the comments your response to any of the news items and which books you are particularly looking forward to seeing released. I always manage to miss a few, so if there are any big releases missing that I haven't covered, please do let me know. But until next time, toodles.